My dear fellow classmates, good evening. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most mysterious person in British history. Some mysteries will never be solved. As the time goes by, they just gradually became part of the history, remaining us endless discussion and speculation. In our daily lives, this kind of mysteries continued to emerge. Sometimes there are even happened in most familiar names in our lives. From the first day in the kindergarten to now, we have heard quite a few Jacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone is calling the name Jake, who do you have in mind?
Jack and the Beanstalk.
The Jake from Jake the Beanstalk? The handsome Jake from the movie Titanic? Or the famous Halloween Jack O'Lantern? Well, today, I'm not going to talk about any of them, but another Jake. This Jake is very different from three I have mentioned above. He is one of the most notorious, but at the same time legendary killers in British history. He is Jack the Ripper. Don't worry, we won't see anything R-rated later. After all, we are still underage. Today, my presentation will be divided into 4 parts. To begin with, let's set up a scene with a quick look at Whitechapel. Next, I will be introducing some gruesome cases. Moving on, who exactly is this mysterious Jake? You will be guided through various theories and speculation surrounding his identity. Last but not least, I will end up my presentation with some personal feedback toward Jack. Now, let's start. If you haven't heard the story of Jack the Ripper, you might imagine Whitechapel a romantic place according to its name. However, nothing could be farther from the truth. In the late 19th century, Whitechapel was located in the East End of London. The neighborhood was known for its extreme poverty and overcrowding. People in there lived a poor life. Life was especially harsh for women. Many turned to prostitution to survive. These women are particularly vulnerable to violence and exploitation. It was really heartbreaking. This harsh environment made Whitechapel a hotspot for such crimes, and all of the cases that Jack the Ripper did occurred in this area. Wait. After taking a look at the scene and some background information, it's time to check out the cases. Among all the murders linked to Jack the Ripper, there are 5 commonly accepted as his work. The method used in these cases were similar, and the victims shared some common traits. Like, they are all middle-aged prostitutes, and their bodies were found badly disfigured with their throat cut and abdomen open, and some of their uterus and kidneys were even missing. There was something special about the 3rd and the 4th victim. They were killed less than an hour apart. The 3rd victim had only her throat cut, less violent than in the other cases, and the 4th victim had one of her kidneys missing. Keep this detail in mind, it will be important in the next section. As for the method used in the 5th victim, it was even more brutal than in the previous cases. There was severe facial damages. And this was also recognized as the last confirmed case that committed by Jack the Ripper. In the following part, you will get to know more about this mysterious killer. While the police was desperately searching for Jake, the killer himself sent a letter to Central News Agency. The letter began with the words, "Dear Boss," and the content is the warning about the next crime, stating that a fresh kidney will be sent to the boss. At first, many people at Central News Agency thought it was just a joke, not the real Jake. However, a few days after the fourth victim was killed, the Central News Agency indeed received a letter and a box with a fresh kidney inside. Sounds scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the police focused on the butcher and doctor due to the knowledge of anatomy. Over 300 suspects were investigated, and some main suspect theories emerged. The first suspect was Aaron Kosminski. He lived in Whitechapel in 1888, and it's also the same year that Jack the Ripper started his crime. However, in 1891, Aaron was committed to the mental asylum, and in the same year, Jake suddenly stopped the crime. But unfortunately, the DNA evidence from one of the victims' show wasn't conclusive. The second suspect was Sir John Williams. He was a royal physician and a friend of Queen Victoria. He was suspected because many prostitutes in Whitechapel were infertile. And as a physician, many locals believed that he might take the organs and the uterus to make some experiment. And a book written by his descendant claimed that William was Jake, and his descendant also presented a knife with the blood stain. However, as I previously mentioned, it was not a conclusive proof, and this claim was seen as attention-seeking. The last suspect was Joseph Barnett. He was a laborer in Whitechapel, and he was reported in a relationship with the fifth victim, Kelly. After knowing his girlfriend was a sex worker, he was very angry. So he created the figure Jack the Ripper to kill the prostitutes only, and the purpose is to scare Kelly. However, Kelly continued to be a prostitute. Oh no, Barnett got very angry. He got blinded by rage and killed Kelly. Kelly then became the fifth victim. And before Kelly was killed, some neighbors indeed heard some unusual arguments from Kelly's house. But similar to what previous mentioned, there was no conclusive proof. After hearing all this, who do you think might be the real Jake? Of course, we couldn't know the exact truth. Now, it's time to share my personal feedback. If there were a time machine to go to the past and we can find out who the Jake really was, I wouldn't want to find it out. I wouldn't want to solve this mystery. In my point of view, it's precisely this sense of unknown and mystery that created such a legendary figure, making this case more fascinating. Today's discussion about Jack's story is a means for everyone to deduce the killer's identity. After 130 years, the truth was less important. The fascination of this case lies in its society conditions and the deep human complexities. I hope you, even without knowing the real identity of this killer, it's still worth reflecting on. I hope you find this case intriguing and know more about this part of the history. This is all from me today. Thank you.